Hello and welcome back to the wacotrib.com Super Centex Friday Night Lights podcast. I don't know what it's actually called, but that sounds like a pretty good name to me, huh, Brice?
That'll work.
You like kind of like the rough, like the rough cut I go with, with the intro every week.
It's a tradition.
Right. Right. It's kind of like it's like bad improv is what it is.
Like Michael Scott improv.
Exactly.
Doing an entire episode of Law and Order.
I'm gonna go right, yeah. Or I shoot you with my fake hand pistol, then I have to do the podcast by myself.
Right.
Anyway, it's high school football podcast, so we're here to talk about high school football. So
Indeed.
We'll do that. I just got back from Las Vegas yesterday afternoon, as you know. Thanks for letting me run off and do that. I got a little bit of Stats Plus done for you. So
yeah, you did.
But while I was there, so I bet a 3-game parlay.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday on the NFL. I like the NFL a lot. People tell me all the time, "Well, I just don't like the NFL as much as college." I'm like, well, fine, but I like. And you like the NFL too.
I do. I feel the same way about the NFL and the NBA. I mean, you have a lot of people say kind of the same thing. I just don't like the NBA. Well, you don't know what you're missing.
Right. So I bet a 3-game parlay, and what that means for those that might have higher moral standards than me, that don't know the ins and outs of gambling, sports betting, is that you bet 3 games and you got to get them all right against the point spread. And so I bet on the Chiefs, the Rams, and the Cowboys all to win. And the Rams covered from the gun. They had no problem with the Giants from the word go. The Chiefs kind of went back and forth with the Washington football team a little bit before taking control and covering pretty easy in that game. That was a 6.5-point line, I think. Cowboys were a 3.5-point favorite at the Patriots, which was not looking good. Even in overtime, it wasn't looking good for me. That was the 3rd game of the parlay. That was the last one I had to get. And as anybody who, watches football in Texas probably knows by now, CeeDee Lamb scored a touchdown in overtime, which got me the win, right? So,
Nice.
All of that to say, I'm kind of inspired, here on the high school football Friday Night Lights.
You're going to inject
podcast.
Gambling into UIL sports, is what you're saying.
Actually, well, I mean, let's be honest. It already happens,
Well, that's true. It
happens.
At the Dairy Queen.
Huh?
I said it happens at the Dairy Queen and the coffee shop and, wherever football fans meet together.
Right. I don't want to get too heavy here, but, sports gambling is a real addiction for some people. And I'm sure there's people that bet on JV games.
Oh, my gosh. That's scary.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't necessarily endorse that at all, but I just thought, let's take 3 matchups and pick them like a parlay, and I didn't necessarily pick our biggest games of the week because I feel like we both agree on who's going to win some of our biggest games of the week, even though they're inviting matchups. There's a heavy favorite, Crawford-Bosqueville, for example. Crawford beat them twice last year. It was more lopsided the second time than the first time. Bosqueville's got a fighting chance, but I think we would both pick Crawford in that one. So that would be kind of boring. So here's our 3-game parlay. Pick all 3 of your games at once, and then I'll pick all 3 of my games, all right? And the games are Midlothian Heritage at la-vega, Groesbeck at Malakoff, and Holland at rosebud-lott. So give us some insights and some picks in those 3 games.
And we are saying here that we're not implementing any kind of a point spread. We're just picking the winners.
Right. Well, if I wanted to do point spread, I could have thrown those other games in the mix. But now we don't want to get too much like real gambling here.
Good call. Good call. So, I mean, I was thinking about this and I was like, should we have different picks? Does this mean that if I pick one team, Chad's going to pick the other? But here's what I'll say. I'm just going to go with who I think I'll pick in our picks box.
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
So as far as the Midlothian Heritage versus la-vega game, I would certainly not count la-vega out. And I feel like they really played well last week in the game against Brownwood.
Certainly to come back and win that.
Yeah, big rushing performance there from their freshman running back. But
Brice and Roland.
Yeah, Brice and Roland. I said in the story that he was rolling. Not surprising there that I would have used such a cheesy line, but I'm going.
First time I ever heard you doing anything like that.
So. No, absolutely not. I'm going with Heritage. You're talking about a team that's won 6 out of 7 this year, and favored for a reason. And if la-vega wins, I won't be surprised, but I'm just kind of going with the favorite in that one. We're talking about a top 10 ranked team in the state.
Right.
And then we've got Groesbeck and who are they playing?
Malakoff at Malakoff.
Yeah. That's in fact, that's a game I'm previewing in our capsules on Friday. But so I'll be talking to Coach Bomar. Give me the goats in this one. I really like how they're playing. They've got a lot of firepower, but don't sleep on that defense either. I mean, they gave up 20 points to Eustis last week, but won convincingly in that game. And they've really, like I said, they've been able to put up a lot of points really throughout the year, even while I think dealing with a few injuries.
And they had a COVID week.
Yeah. Okay.
When they play Academy, I think they're missing like 6 starters on defense. And Academy has proven to be a pretty good team too.
I mean, so they're a team of perseverance as well. I mean, I really like what Jerry Bomar's done there at Groesbeck now in year 3. He's got them essentially, stair-stepping up every season thus far. So, and then as far as the Rosebud-Lott-Holland game, to me, that one's the biggest toss-up maybe of the 3. I really think it could go either way. I'm going to take Holland. Rosebud-Lott, I feel like, has been a little bit enigmatic. They're really good. They're really good some weeks, and then other weeks maybe not as much, but certainly explosive and have a lot of talent. And they have our area's leading passer in Zane Zeinert. You've done a story on the Cougars this year, but those would be my 3 picks: Heritage, Groesbeck, and Holland.
Okay. I'll come. I'm going to agree with you on Heritage. I think I picked la-vega against Stephenville a couple weeks ago and got burned on that one. Not that, Stephenville, I think is really good. la-vega is in a tough district. I mean, the fact that they could be knocked off as the district favorite in that district shows you how good the district is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Malakoff kind of has the edge of having been there before a lot over the last probably decade.
Yeah.
And probably schedules accordingly, in its first few games of the year. So I'll go with Malakoff in that one. So, we both play fantasy football, and we know that in fantasy football, you get real good information, practice to practice, on where guys are at injury-wise. And Rosebud-Lott apparently has been missing Jordan Landrum from the lineup for a few weeks now. And if it were fantasy football and we could say, hey, Jordan was limited in his activity with the Cougars at practice today, if we knew that kind of thing, it would help pick this game, I feel like. but I think I'm going to go with Rosebud-Lott anyway, because
Okay.
my thinking is if he's still out, they're maybe figured out what to do with him not in there. And if he's back, that's even better.
Yeah, that's a fair analysis.
Like I said, I wish I knew more about all these matchups, but I think I had a pretty good week despite that last week in our picks box.
You did. You had a good week, and I believe, was it last week that you were able to move past me in the standings?
I told you, I asked you on Friday night if you felt that breeze when I blew by you.
Yeah. There's still some football left to be played.
Okay, well, let's transition. I have kind of an observation just from looking at our stats plus the last couple of weeks, really. At this stage, I think we only have one official 1,000-yard rusher, and we're 8 weeks into the season, and that's really surprising. Before I go any further with my own predictions or analysis of this, what are your thoughts? I mean, gosh, a few years ago we had Javion Sunday getting the 1,000-yard mark in week 4. So what's going on there, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an excellent question, because it is sort of puzzling. I feel like, all right, so you mentioned the fantasy football thing.
Mm-hmm.
You and I do play fantasy football, and for one of my fantasy leagues, I wrote a little piece earlier this year looking at running backs and several things, but I was talking a lot about how, you just don't see as many 100-yard performances in the NFL anymore by running backs. And there's a few reasons for that. And they include a proliferation of passing. I went back and looked, and I think teams pass like 25 to 30% more often than they did just even like 20 years ago. And then the other thing in the NFL, which probably affects it even more, is what we would call in fantasy football the RBBC, the running back by committee. And it's essentially, coaches realize that these running backs have a very short shelf life. They last about as long as unrefrigerated milk. They do not last long. And, guys that were stars just 3 and 4 years ago are nowhere to be found now in the NFL. So all that to say, you're seeing in the NFL guys get like 10 to 12 carries rather than 20 to 25. And so I'm wondering, we see a lot of trickle up and trickle down in football, where things that are successful on one level of football may, be stolen and used in whether it's high school to college to the NFL, or vice versa, going downward. So it does make me wonder if we're seeing maybe a little bit more of an equal distribution of carries. But it's puzzling to me, because like you said, typically we would have multiple guys above 1,000 yards at this point. And so, maybe it's a little more passing, maybe it's, running back by committee, but I mean, it's interesting, puzzling. And I do feel like let's acknowledge that while we have a majority of teams probably in our Stats Plus listings, there may be a few out there that, want to keep their stats under wraps. And so there's probably one or two at least 1,000-yard rusher that we might not know about.
Well, there's one who I'm certain is over 1,000 at this point, and that's Tanner Bean from Wortham. And we just never did get official numbers in time for him this week. I don't know where Breck Chambers is at Crawford. We'll get like a surprise reveal when they send their Super Centex nominations in for how many Breck Chambers has at Crawford. And then, Major Bowden at China Spring could be in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and just again, la-vega is another one that just recently sent in some stats, but I don't think they had their stat updates this
Well,
week.
la-vega and Mart, both really good running teams, but they, like you were talking about, spread the ball around so much to different guys that.
Yeah, and a team like Mart is killing teams, and so guys tend to get less carries just because they're up by 40 points.
Right. One other area I wanted to kind of look at on this subject is I feel like we're in the post-spread era. Like, I feel like there are fewer teams, that the bell curve has come back down and there's fewer teams actually running a straight up spread. People will say they're multiple, they're pro style and stuff like that. They want to use the tight end more. And so, your spread days, your Mike Leach spread of 4 verticals, on every play, that feels like that's a thing of the past. And yet the wide receiver has become a bigger part of the game. I mean, the wide receiver continues to become progressively a more important facet of an offense. And I was even talking to Ray Biles just now about the slot receiver. And it feels like a lot of teams are putting their best offensive player that's not their quarterback at slot receiver.
Interesting. And you're right. I think if you talk to coaches nowadays and you ask them what offense do you run, the answer you're going to get more often than not is, well, we're multiple,
Mm-hmm.
And I think all that means is, we are going to run the spread in some formations and sometimes, and again, you do still see it, but they're also going to line up tight and they're going to bunch and they're, going to occasionally put a fullback in there and, 2 tight ends. And I think it benefits your offense if you are able to move the ball in a variety of different looks. Honestly, just occasionally watching some JV football, I get a little frustrated sometimes when you see bad snap after bad snap after bad snap, and they won't move out of the shotgun. And it's like, look, if you can't find a center who can snap the ball with accuracy, I'm sure he can at least hand it off between his legs. I mean, sometimes I think, it really pays to be multiple, to be versatile and have a variety of different offensive looks.
I might show a little bit of ignorance here, a little bit, maybe just not of specific knowledge of football history. I know that Tom Landry kind of innovated the shotgun snap with the Cowboys. And I don't know if that was, I'm sure, I know Tom Landry and Darrell Royal overlapped for several, maybe a decade or more. And I don't know if Darrell Royal ever used the shotgun within the Texas offense. I don't think he probably did. But when you mentioned that, bad snaps, can you imagine Darrell Royal, who famously said when you throw the ball, only 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad, right? And that's kind of the same. I mean, why would you want to throw in an extra element of something that could go wrong, right? And yet, when you get the shotgun snap right, it gives the quarterback so much better setup and his 5 seconds or his 3.5 seconds goes to 5 seconds, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can absolutely see why the shotgun snap was implemented and why it's attractive. And so I get it, that you want to give your quarterback that extra, whether it's a split second. I mean, split second matters, but like I said, I feel like it's good to practice a lot of different things, because then if A is not working, we've got a plan B.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got 3 weeks left in the regular season. In my Sunday column this week, I sort of likened that to the end of a set at a concert. end of the main set at a concert where,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, I saw Chris Stapleton play this summer, and all the ninnies in the audience kept on yelling, "We want to hear Tennessee whiskey. We want to see your Tennessee." You know, they do that at concerts all the time. People get fixated on one song, and I think it drives the artist crazy. In fact, there's more than one funny story about,
Well, so
I was at
a bowling for soup concert, and at the Backyard here in Waco, and this was just a few months ago. Similar kind of deal, where there were a couple, I'm going to say college students, Baylor students, standing nearby me, and over and over and over, we're just like, when are they going to play 1985? I mean, come on, if they don't play it next, I'm leaving. And they did ultimately end up leaving, probably a song before they ended up playing 1985. But yeah, I was like, dude, first of all, these artists have more than one song, and just because you only know one, why are you even here?
Well, so at the end of the Stapleton show, and he always does the same thing, he does this sort of bluesy intro of the band, and it's really funny and just a cool way to introduce his band. And the whole time he's playing this blues riff, and you know where they're going, and then they play Tennessee Whiskey to end the main set. And then all the ninnies leave because they heard Tennessee Whiskey and they think the show's over. And then they come back with the encore. And the encore is like dessert that you're not too full to eat.
Right.
That's a metaphor within a metaphor.
Okay.
But all of this rambling to say we're close to the end of the main set. The good stuff is really coming, like, for the regular season.
Oh yeah.
One
encore after another, really.
Well, the playoffs are the encore. That's the metaphor.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you get an encore one week, and then you get an encore the next week, and it just gets better and better.
Well, you're screwing up where my metaphor here, Brice. Don't mess with my metaphor.
Go on.
Anyway, we've got 3 weeks left. So got some great games on Friday night. Give me one storyline you're interested in as we come to the second. We've come around the second turn of the regular season.
To me, it's a storyline that will not be answered anytime soon, but it will be answered by Christmas, and that's just how many state champions will Central Texas produce. This is something we've talked about really since before the season ever started. We are used to pretty stinking good football around here, and year after year after year, at least in some division of football, whether it is 4A, 2A, 1A, 3A, whatever it might be, we produce at least one state champion, if not more than one. And last year was this anomaly that we didn't really like. Because
we got shut out. Yeah,
we got shut out, and it was the first time in about 15 to 8. I'm trying to remember now, but about 15 years that it had happened. And I feel like we're going to come back with a vengeance this year, in terms of Central Texas producing state champions. And I feel like Martin Live Oak might be locks. And so then you're talking about who beyond them might have a shot. And I think the Lorena Leopards have a shot. I think 3A is pretty good around here, honestly, with la-vega or with Lorena, West, the groesbeck-goats who we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I think those teams are going to play a while. Obviously there's other good teams in the state, and you're going to run into some good teams. And so you got to make plays, but Crawford is another one that I'll throw out there as a team that, has a chance to do something in the playoffs. They were in the state semifinals last year and clicking along pretty well right now.
Well, on that subject, and I'll give you my storyline here in a minute. It's a little bit more micro than macro, but
yeah.
Do you think Carthage is insurmountable, or do you think China Spring is crescendoing towards something like beating Carthage and getting beyond that?
Tough question to answer without really getting to see Carthage. And I guess nowadays with streaming, maybe we could take a look at some of these other out of area teams, but we've kind of got our hands full.
We got enough to do.
Yeah, we don't need to be scouting for anyone, but I think it's going to be a tough road to hoe. Carthage is Carthage for a reason. That said, I always feel like the more you play a team, the more it benefits you, whether you win or lose. You learn things, you take things, and you figure out maybe where you need to get better against that particular opponent. The fact that China Spring saw Carthage last year, benefits the Cougars, I think, if they meet again.
Yeah. So my more micro, this maybe doesn't have an impact for late November and December, but should be interesting the next 3 weeks is who are going to be the third and fourth place teams in our district with China Spring, Salado, and Robinson, and Connally and Gatesville. Because China Spring is, I think, head and shoulders above everybody else in the district.
Agreed.
Salado beat them last year, but I don't think that's going to happen again on Friday.
I agree.
And so then, but Salado's probably, as much as China Spring is head and shoulders above everybody else for the district championship, Salado is probably right there at second place. They beat Connally, who I would have said that was the biggest contender for the number 2 seed there on Friday night. And I think that was like 28-7, something like that. And then, well, I've got it here. No, that's
it was 28-7.
Yeah. And then Gatesville made the playoffs last year. Gerald's probably out. Gerald's been knocked around by, I think, everybody they played, including Robinson last week.
Well, it was a close game, and give credit to the Robinson Rockets, who've had a tough season, but big win for Robinson, 50-43, and really puts them right in the mix just by winning that game. And you've got Robinson and Gatesville this week. And to me, if you're talking about, who's going to be in that top 4, I think the winner of this game puts themselves in a pretty good place for that. First of all, you have the tiebreaker over the other one, should it come down to a head-to-head type situation. But Gatesville's sitting there at 0-3. The Hornets can't afford to go to they're 0-2. They can't afford to get to 0-3. And if Robinson,
they played China and Salado.
If Robinson wins this one and puts themselves at 2-1, I mean, I think the Rockets are looking pretty good.
Yeah, and Connally, of course, has a win over Robinson. To their credit, so that still makes them look, pretty good as a playoff team. But then, they're going to have to beat Gatesville, and that Gatesville Connally game sort of has some intrigue to it.
Yeah, I would say both the Robinson Gatesville game this week and the future Connally Gatesville game, like you said, have intrigue, have some drama to them, and will be interesting to see. I don't think any of these teams are destined for a deep playoff run, but I mean, let's face it, they're even in an era of UIL football that a lot of old timers would dismiss and say, there's too many teams make the playoffs. And to a certain extent, I agree with that. But that said, you can't tell me that for Robert Rubel's team out at Robinson that making the playoffs wouldn't be a big step, I mean, because he's trying to build something there. And sometimes that little, 4-6, 5-5 step can help you, get to 8-4 the next year, or, a couple years down the road.
Right. By the way, that Gatesville-Connally matchup is next Friday. You know where they're playing? In
Gatesville?
At McCamey Stadium in Gatesville.
So are you already bidding for a return trip?
No. I'm not going to, me, I'm a generous person. I'm not going to hog that. Somebody else can go take advantage of that. Now, I did have some really good, what I can only assume was J&M barbecue last week. And I had a little bit of brisket and some sausage and a little slice of pizza. So I stayed on believe it or not, and this is what's so great about my nutritional plan, I could do that and it'd still be on my nutritional plan. It's just about portion control.
Okay. Sounds like we've reached the commercial portion of our podcast now.
Well, oh yeah, for Noom, sure, yeah, go try out Noom. But hey, here's
can we get a kickback on any of these shout outs that we do?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing with media these days, is like you feel like if you mention somebody, you're like giving them free advertising. But how are you not going to mention stuff?
Well, sure.
But here's the other thing. We started talking about portion control and that type of thing, which means we're at the end of our podcast because people are going to turn it off anyway.
Right. It's more about if you want to keep listening, we want to talk about what to load up on, not what to portion out.
Well, I will say, yeah, they had lasagna on Friday night.
Oh my.
They had, of course, brisket and sausage. I believe there was chicken there in the mix, the pizza. They had 2 different desserts. Now, the desserts were not going to be on my calorie plan, so I just didn't even tempt myself with them.
Wow.
But they were homemade, I can tell you that.
Congratulations on that.
On just the willpower to do that.
For sure.
Yeah, I know, like, and especially you and John, y'all would have just taken one of the trays of dessert just outside and just had it.
I'd have put a piece of chicken between 2 brownies.
A chicken sandwich with brownie.
There's a winning idea. Somebody out there in fast food land.
That's like the chicken equivalent of like what is it? What's the ice cream sandwich truck? Pokios.
I like it. Yeah. All right. Do you have any more high school football related questions, or can I go watch the rest?
No, that's it. Yeah, that's all. Have fun Friday night, folks. We'll see you next week.
All right.